Have you ever walked into a room and felt something wrong? The air thickens, your skin prickles, and you can't explain why your heart starts racing. It's like someone's watching you, but when you turn around, there's nothing there. That's not coincidence. That's not just your imagination. Sometimes it's a mark, one of the signs left behind by someone who doesn't want the best for you. And no, I'm not talking about fairy tales. I'm talking about the reality most people refuse to see until it's too late. When a witch marks you, it's never random. It's calculated. You've been targeted because you have something they want. Your peace, your success, your relationships, your light. They don't come at you with fire and smoke. They work in silence, in shadows, until your life starts to unravel piece by piece. And if you don't know how to recognize these marks, you won't even realize you've been compromised until you're standing in ruins, wondering how it all happened. The first mark is isolation. Suddenly, people you've trusted start pulling away. Misunderstandings happen out of nowhere. Friends become distant. Opportunities vanish without explanation. You think it's just bad luck or human nature, but what's really happening is a deliberate effort to cut you off from your support system. Because a person alone is easier to attack, then comes the erosion of your energy. You wake up tired, even after sleeping all night. You feel drained just being in certain places or around certain people. You're losing your motivation, your fire, and you don't know why. They want you weak, so you won't have the strength to fight back. The third mark hides in your environment. Things start breaking. Your finances take unexpected hits. Items go missing. And sometimes you'll find strange things placed where they don't belong. An object you've never seen before, a symbol, a piece of string, a powder. Those aren't accidents. Those are tools meant to anchor the curse to your life. The fourth is the disruption of your peace of mind. Nightmares become frequent. You hear footsteps when no one is there, whispers when you're alone. You feel watched. You can't focus because you're constantly on edge, as if your spirit knows it's in danger, but your mind can't find the threat. The fifth mark attacks your relationships directly. People who once had your back suddenly become suspicious of you, argue with you, or betray you. Seeds of distrust are planted, and before you realize it, your strongest alliances crumble. They know if they can turn your allies against you, they can make you easier prey. The sixth is a string of impossible coincidences. Everything seems to go wrong at once. Your health, your work, your home, your plans. One setback after another, like the universe itself has turned against you, but it's not the universe. It's them. When a witch marks you, understand this. It's not random, it's not an accident, and it's never by chance. You were chosen, not because they stumbled across you, but because they saw something in you they wanted to destroy. Maybe it's your influence, maybe it's the way people listen when you speak, maybe it's the peace you carry in a world that thrives on chaos. They don't attack people with nothing to lose. They target those whose light threatens their darkness. Every move they make is intentional, every step calculated. They'll study you quietly, learning your routines, your strengths, and your weaknesses. They'll figure out what matters most to you, not to admire it, but to dismantle it. And while you're busy thinking life is just unfolding the way it always does, they've already drawn a line around you, branding you as their next conquest. That mark is like a signature on your spirit, a claim they believe they now have over you, and if you don't recognize it for what it is, you'll unknowingly play right into their hands. The first real move they make is to pull you away from everyone who gives you strength, and they won't do it in a way that's obvious. They won't tell you to cut people off. They'll plant tiny seeds of doubt. They'll twist a friend's words so they sound like betrayal. They'll create situations that make you question people you've trusted for years. One by one, Those you lean on start stepping back, not because they want to, but because the circumstances have been engineered to push them away. You'll notice phone calls stop coming, invitations dry up, the people who used to have your back seem too busy, too distracted, or suddenly distant. And before you realize what's happening, you're standing alone, without a circle, without support, exactly where they want you. Because a person surrounded by allies is a fortress, but a person isolated is an open target. They know this, and they count on the fact that once they have you alone, you'll be easier to break. If they can't break you through isolation, they'll go after your energy, because they know the mind is only as strong as the body that carries it. This is where they play the long game. You won't notice it at first. You'll tell yourself you're just tired because of work, because of stress, because life has been a lot lately. But then you'll start waking up feeling like you've run a marathon in your sleep. You'll drag yourself through the day as if you're carrying weights on your shoulders. And no matter how early you go to bed, no matter how much coffee you drink, that heaviness follows you. It doesn't stop at tiredness. It creeps into your focus. Tasks you used to handle in minutes suddenly feel overwhelming. The clarity you once had gets fogged over, and your ability to think sharply begins to fade. You'll notice yourself making mistakes, forgetting things, guessing decisions you would have once made confidently. That's not an accident, that's erosion. They're wearing you down grain by grain until you're too exhausted to fight, too drained to even realize you're under attack. Sometimes this energy drain shows up physically. You'll get random headaches, muscle aches, or a stiffness that no amount of stretching seems to fix. Your body feels heavy even when you've done nothing strenuous. And then there's the strange illnesses, nothing serious enough to land you in the hospital, but just enough to keep you from feeling like yourself. Your immune system feels weaker. You catch colds more often. Your recovery takes longer. They know that if they can chip away at your physical vitality, your mental and spiritual defenses will follow. But this isn't just about health, it's about presence. You'll start avoiding social situations, not because you don't want to connect, but because you simply don't have the energy to. You'll turn down opportunities because they feel like too much. You'll miss out on moments you once lived for. Slowly, they strip you of the very things that make life feel vibrant. And the worst part, they do it without you ever seeing their hand in it. Sometimes, the drain is triggered when you step into certain places or stand near certain people. You'll feel fine one moment, and then the second you enter a room, it's like a switch flips. You get lightheaded, your chest feels heavy, your mood plummets. This isn't just bad vibes, it's deliberate. Some spaces are charged, some people are vessels carrying the energy meant to weaken you. They might smile in your face while siphoning your spirit from the inside out. If you pay close attention, you'll notice patterns. That sudden exhaustion that comes after specific conversations, that unexplained heaviness after touching certain objects, the inability to focus after visiting certain homes. And when you start connecting these dots, you'll realize the truth. You are not just tired, you're being drained. Because they understand that once your energy is gone, your will to resist starts to slip away. This kind of attack doesn't announce itself loudly. It seeps into your life like a slow leak. You keep telling yourself you'll get your strength back soon. You think one good night's sleep will fix it. But days turn into weeks and weeks into months. And before you know it, your baseline energy, the thing you used to rely on, has been lowered without your consent. You're operating at half power while believing this is your new normal. They want you to accept that feeling drained is just how life is. Because the moment you normalize exhaustion, you stop searching for the cause, and when you stop searching, you stop fighting. That's when they win, not because they overpowered you in a single blow, but because they wore you down so subtly, you didn't realize you'd surrendered. And here's the dangerous truth: energy is not just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. They'll create situations designed to provoke you, to make you angry, to frustrate you, because every emotional reaction you have costs you energy. A heated argument, a moment of panic, an extended period of stress, it all depletes the reserves you need to stand strong. They don't need to harm you physically if they can keep you in a constant state of mental fatigue. And when you're tired long enough, your boundaries get weaker. You start saying yes to things you should say no to. You let people in who shouldn't be there. You miss red flags because you don't have the strength to address them. Your guard drops, not because you've chosen to let it down, but because you no longer have the stamina to keep it up. This is exactly what they count on. I've seen people break not because of one massive attack, but because of thousands of small ones. Drip by drip, cut by cut, until the person standing there is a shell of who they used to be, and they'll still try to convince you it's all in your head. That you're just tired because life is busy. They want you to believe that lie because the longer you believe it, the deeper the damage goes. But here's the thing about energy. When you take ownership of it, when you guard it like it's your most valuable asset, you stop being an easy target. They can't drain what they can't access. And the moment you stop giving them access, whether through physical proximity, emotional connection, or spiritual openness, you take back the power they thought they stole. If you want, I can keep building this exact point out to a full cinematics, style Evy Poumpouras delivery, so it flows seamlessly into point 4 with the same intensity, giving you that edge of your momentum that would make the whole sequence far more gripping for your listeners. And when they've drained you enough to slow you down, they start moving into your physical space, because this is where the trap becomes tangible. It's not always about bruises or cuts. It's about leaving traces, anchors, in the very environment you live in. You might notice things out of place, small, seemingly harmless objects that you can't remember bringing into your home. A feather in the corner of the room, a small bundle of thread tied in a knot, a powder sprinkled near your door. You think it's just random clutter, something you overlooked, but nothing is random. These are deliberate placements, physical tokens carrying intention, designed to hold the attack in place like a nail pinning down a shadow. And it's not just about what appears, it's about what disappears. You'll lose things that have meaning to you, objects that carry your personal energy. A piece of jewelry, a photograph, a keepsake, they vanish without explanation, not because you misplaced them, but because someone took them to bind your spirit to their work. In their hands, those items become keys to access your life force in ways you can't see. Your home, the place where you should feel the safest, starts to feel unsettled. You hear noises. You can't place footsteps in an empty hallway. The faint sound of something shifting when no one's moving. Sometimes it's a whisper just beyond your hearing, a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision. You start questioning yourself, did I really hear that? Did I really see that? That's exactly what they want. The moment you doubt your own senses, you stop trusting your instincts, and your instincts are your first defense. Then there are the smells, odd, fleeting scents that don't belong, a sudden whiff of burning when nothing's cooking, the sharp tang of metal in the air, or a sweet, cloying scent that makes your stomach turn. These are not accidents. Scents can carry memory, emotion, and energy, and the wrong ones at the wrong time can unsettle your spirit before you even realize it's happening. Sometimes they go further. They create physical disturbances, doors that close on their own, lights that flicker without cause, electronics that fail for no reason. You tell yourself it's faulty wiring or old hinges, but deep down something feels off. These disturbances are meant to wear you down mentally, to make your home feel like a place of unease rather than rest. When you no longer feel safe in your own space, they've already taken half the battle. They don't need to break into your home in the middle of the night to do this. They can leave their mark anywhere you regularly go, your workplace, your car, even your favorite cafe. A small object tucked under your seat, a strange residue on your desk, something slipped into your bag without your knowledge. They know that your environment moves with you, so they attach their influence to it, ensuring you carry the disturbance wherever you go. The most dangerous part, you will rationalize it. You will find explanations that feel logical because your mind doesn't want to accept the possibility of deliberate interference. You'll blame yourself for losing things, for imagining sounds, for overreacting to small anomalies. And as you dismiss each sign, you let the anchor stay exactly where they placed it. But make no mistake, once they've embedded something into your environment, it becomes a silent accomplice. Every time you pass it, touch it, or even stand near it, you feed it with your presence. That's how they keep their hold over you without ever stepping into the light. It's not about the object itself, it's about the energy it carries, the intention it was created with. And if you don't cleanse it, remove it, destroy it, it will keep working against you, whether you believe in it or not. When they've weakened your body, disturbed your space, and chipped away at your peace, they move in for something far more destructive. They go after your relationships. Because no matter how strong you are, no matter how disciplined, if they can turn the people closest to you against you, they don't have to fight you alone. You'll be fighting everyone around you. And they do it in ways so subtle, you won't see the shift until the damage is already done. It can start with whispers. Someone you trust hears a rumor about you, something just believable enough to plant doubt. They may not even believe it fully, but the seed has been sown. That seed grows every time they notice a small imperfection in you, every time you have a disagreement, every time you show a moment of weakness. Before long, their perception of you has changed and you haven't done a single thing differently. They don't stop at rumors. They engineer misunderstandings. A message taken out of context, an innocent comment twisted into an insult, a moment of frustration magnified into a character flaw. Suddenly, people you've known for years are questioning your intentions, your loyalty, your truth. And because these attacks come from someone you know and trust, they cut deeper than anything an enemy could do from the outside. The real danger here is that you start responding. You feel the need to defend yourself, to explain, to fix the cracks forming in your relationships. But the more you defend, the guiltier you look. The more you try to repair, the more you drain your energy. They want you in this cycle exhausted, frustrated, and emotionally raw, because it keeps you from focusing on the bigger picture, that someone else is orchestrating the entire collapse. And they know exactly who to target first. It's not random. They'll go for the people you rely on most, the ones you would turn to if everything fell apart. They chip away at those bonds until the bridge between you collapses. Without those connections, you become isolated not just physically this time, but emotionally. You may still be surrounded by people, but you'll feel completely alone. The coldest part, sometimes they work through the very people you love. Not because those people are bad, but because they can be manipulated. Your friend, your partner, your family member without realizing it. They become the messenger, the carrier of the doubt, the tension, the mistrust. They say things that stick with you. They act in ways that unsettle you, and you can't understand why they've changed. But the truth is, the shift in them started with a shift planted by someone else, and if they can break your relationships, they can break your sense of belonging. Humans are wired to find strength in connection. Take away that connection, And even the strongest fighter can feel like they're standing on quicksand. That's exactly where they want you, alone, unsupported, and doubting every bond you thought was unshakable. Because when you no longer trust those around you, and they no longer trust you, you've been left without your army. And that's when they move in for the kill, and then, as if tearing at your health, your space, and your relationships wasn't enough, they unleash the chaos all at once. This is where your life starts to look like a string of bad luck that makes no sense, one problem after another, stacking so fast you barely have time to breathe between blows. Your car breaks down the same week you get hit with an unexpected bill. Your job suddenly becomes unstable. An opportunity you were counting on falls apart at the last minute. Your health takes another dip, and just when you think it can't possibly get worse, something else happens. People will call it coincidence. They'll say, life happens, sometimes everything just hits at once. But you'll know better. This isn't just a rough season. It's a pattern. It's a rhythm of destruction meant to keep you constantly in crisis mode. When you're running from one fire to the next, you don't have the time, the focus, or the energy to look for the person lighting the matches. That's exactly the point. It's not always dramatic disasters either. Sometimes it's small, nagging problems that never seem to resolve. A minor repair that keeps failing, a document that goes missing just when you need it, a deal that's ready to close but suddenly stalls for no reason. These little obstacles might not seem threatening on their own, but stacked together, they drain you the same way a series of small cuts will bleed you dry. They know that a tired mind is one thing, but a mind in constant survival mode is even easier to manipulate. When you're always waiting for the next bad thing to happen, you stop planning for the future. You stop dreaming. You stop believing you can turn things around. And once they've stripped you of hope, they don't even have to keep attacking. You'll unconsciously start sabotaging yourself because you've been conditioned to expect failure. Sometimes they'll let you taste victory for a moment, just to pull it away at the last second. That's part of the game. They'll give you a sense of relief, so the next blow feels heavier. You'll think you're finally catching a break, only to be blindsided again. This back and forth isn't random, it's designed to wear out your resilience. Because when you can't predict the rhythm, you lose your footing, and when you lose your footing, you're easier to push over. And the cruelest part, they make sure it looks like life, not like sabotage. If they're smart, and they usually are, they'll work through situations that have built-in excuses. A storm causes damage. A market shift impacts your income. An illness comes out of nowhere. You'll hear yourself saying, well, I guess that's just how it goes. And every time you say it, you hand over more control without even realizing it. This is why people stay trapped for years. Not because they're weak, but because the attacks are disguised as everyday misfortunes. And if you don't step back to see the pattern, you'll keep playing defense forever, never realizing you're in a game that was rigged against you from the start. But the most dangerous strike they can land isn't on your body, your home, or even your relationship sits on your mind. Because if they can make you doubt yourself, they don't have to lift another finger. Self-doubt is the slow poison that eats away at your instincts, your confidence, and your will to act. And they know exactly how to slip it into your system. It starts small. You second guess a choice you made. You wonder if you're overreacting. You ask yourself, am I imagining this? Maybe I'm being too sensitive. They want you in that loop of uncertainty, questioning your own perception of reality. Because the moment you start believing you can't trust yourself, you'll lean less on your instincts and more on external voices, and those voices can be easily manipulated. They'll plant scenarios that make you feel foolish for trusting your gut. Maybe you speak up about something that feels wrong, only for others to laugh it off or dismiss you. You walk away embarrassed, telling yourself you won't make that mistake again. Little by little, you stop listening to the inner alarms. You override the warnings. You give people the benefit of the doubt, even when something in you is screaming not to. And that's exactly the opening they need. Self-doubt doesn't just silence your instincts, it rewrites your story. You begin to see yourself through their lens, not your own. You start believing maybe you are unlucky, maybe you do attract problems, maybe you don't deserve better. And when you accept those lies, you become your own jailer, locking yourself into the very trap they set for you. This is the moment they've been working toward from the beginning, because a person who doesn't believe in their own judgment is a person who won't fight back. They won't notice the red flags. They won't connect the dots. They'll rationalize every act of harm as just life. And by the time they realize they've been played, the damage has already rooted deep. And here's the truth most people won't admit. Once self-doubt takes hold, you don't need an enemy anymore. You'll start doing their work for them, holding yourself back, sabotaging opportunities, avoiding risks. You become the one keeping yourself small, quiet, and easy to control. And they can walk away knowing the mark they left will keep working long after they're gone. When you've been worn down, when your relationships are fractured, your home feels unsettled, your luck seems cursed, and your instincts have been silenced, there's one final shift that seals it. They get you to accept the damage as normal. This is the most dangerous territory you can step into, because once you adjust to living with the mark, you stop fighting it. They want you to build your life inside the cage they created. Decorate the walls, and call it home. And make no mistake that acceptance doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow conditioning piece by piece until your baseline for what's okay is far lower than it ever should be. It begins with exhaustion, not just the tiredness in your body, but the weariness in your spirit. You've been in fight mode for so long that part of you starts craving peace at any cost. You tell yourself, if I just stop pushing back, maybe it'll get easier, and for a moment it might, because they know when to ease up just enough to give you a false sense of relief. That's the bait. Once you take it, you begin to equate surrender with safety. Your mind starts rewriting the story to make sense of the chaos. Instead of saying, I'm under attack, you say, that's just life. You tell yourself that people drift apart naturally, that tiredness is just part of adulthood, that constant setbacks are part of the grind. You start speaking their narrative without realizing it, and every time you explain away something that should alarm you, you reinforce the very structure holding you down. This is where complacency takes root. You adapt to the disruptions instead of eliminating them. That strange noise in your house. You get used to it, the friend who's been cold and distant. You stop reaching out, the sudden financial losses. You tighten your belt and call it a learning experience. You don't remove the source, you adjust around it. And every adaptation is a surrender, another piece of ground you give up without even noticing. When you live in this state long enough, you forget what it felt like to be strong, to be clear, headed to be unstoppable. You start believing that maybe this is the best it gets. That hope you used to have, you'll call it naive. That drive you once felt, you'll call it unrealistic. You shrink your goals, you lower your standards, you avoid anything that might rock the fragile stability you've built inside your limitations. And that's exactly what they want, because when your world gets smaller, you're easier to control. You're not chasing dreams, you're not expanding your influence, you're not taking risks that might put you out of their reach. You've been contained without chains, and you'll even defend that containment to others. If someone tries to point out the wrongness in your life, you'll tell them they're overreacting, that everything's fine. You'll fight harder to keep the illusion than you ever fought to keep your freedom. This stage is the most sinister because it doesn't require them to keep pressing. Once you've accepted the mark as part of your life, you'll maintain it yourself. They can step back, knowing the work is done. The sabotage becomes self-sustaining. You wake up every day inside the reality they designed, and you don't question it because you've been trained not to. The signs of this are subtle but deadly. You stop telling people how you really feel because you assume they won't understand. You avoid making plans for the future because you've learned they never work out anyway. You accept treatment from others that you would have once walked away from without hesitation. Your boundaries dissolve quietly, not because someone tears them down in front of you, but because you stop enforcing them. It's like erosion. Rocks don't crumble all at once. They're worn down by wind and water, grain by grain, until their shape is unrecognizable. You don't see it happening day by day, but one day you look in the mirror and realize you don't recognize yourself either. And the scariest part, by then, you've been living in that shape so long, the idea of changing feels impossible. But here's the truth you need to hear: acceptance of the mark is not peace, it's paralysis. And if you let it sit too long, it will convince you that moving, changing, resisting is more dangerous than staying still. That's the final trick. They make you believe that freedom is the risk, not the cage. Once you're in that place, you stop seeking help. You stop talking about what's wrong. You start building justifications for why you can't change. I don't have the energy. It's too late for me. I've already lost too much. And the more you repeat those sentences, the more you bind yourself to the fate they wanted for you from the start. I've seen people live entire lives in this state. Decades pass, and they never break the cycle because they forgot there was a cycle to begin with. They pass on the same learned helplessness to the next generation, teaching them to live inside limitations that were never theirs to carry. And the witch doesn't even have to touch them anymore because the mark lives on, passed down like an heirloom. If you've ever felt this way, settled into a life you know isn't yours, numb to the small cuts that keep coming, you're not broken beyond repair. But you have to see it for what it is. You have to be willing to tear down the false comfort of the cage and step into the uncertainty of freedom. Because the moment you stop accepting the mark as part of you, you start stripping it of its power. And that's the one thing they never want you to realize. They never come at you head on because head on is too easy to see. They operate in silence, in the blind spots of your attention, slipping into your life so quietly that by the time you feel the impact, they've already been there for weeks, months, sometimes years. That's the genius of it. If they slammed the door open and declared themselves, you'd fight. But when they move in the shadows, they can work right in front of you, and you'll never think to call it an attack. They use moments you'd never suspect, a casual conversation that plants an idea, a small act that feels harmless, a delay that seems like bad timing. They're not trying to overwhelm you with one massive strike. They're stitching tiny threads together, each one so thin you can barely see it, but strong enough to bind you over time. You feel the pull, but you can't find the rope. This is why it's so hard to explain to others. You can't point to one smoking gun. You can't say, here's the moment it all started. It's a drip feed, one drop of poison at a time. And people around you might even think you're imagining it, because from the outside, everything looks normal. That's part of the design. They want the attack to be invisible to everyone except the person feeling it, and even then, they'll make you doubt what you're feeling. They're patient. They'll wait for your weakest days to push just a little harder. They'll step back when you seem suspicious, letting your guard lower again before they move in. It's not always direct contact. They might work through people who have no idea they're being used. A friend, a co-worker, a neighbor. These people aren't in on it, but they can still carry the message, the mood, the influence, without realizing whose hands are pulling the strings. And because it's silent, you don't react in time. You keep giving the benefit of the doubt. You keep thinking, they probably didn't mean it that way. Or that's just bad luck. Or I'm overthinking this. Every time you dismiss it, they take one more step forward. And eventually, they're standing in the center of your life, controlling the temperature, deciding the pace, and you can't even remember how they got there. That's the real power of a silent attack. It robs you of the chance to stop it early. By the time you notice the roots are deep, the damage is layered, and untangling it feels impossible. And they're counting on you to feel exactly that way, because if you believe there's nothing you can do, you won't even try. When the final mark is made, it's never just about harming you, it's about owning you. That's what most people don't understand. A witch's ultimate goal isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's possession. They want your mind, your choices, your spirit to move in sync with their will, even when they're nowhere in sight. And the most dangerous part, you might not even realize it's happened. They condition you so slowly, so deliberately, that you begin making decisions that serve them without ever questioning why. You'll find yourself thinking thoughts that aren't yours, avoiding opportunities you once chased, doubting people you once trusted, and you'll think those ideas were born in your own head. That's when they've won, when their influence becomes your inner voice. They leave behind more than scars. They leave instructions written into your very instincts, a reaction to fear that wasn't there before, a hesitancy to speak up, a sudden comfort in silence where there should be a fight. This is the mark that lingers even after they're gone, because they've trained you to guard yourself in ways that keep you small, to see the world through their shadow instead of your own light. And unless you recognize that this was the goal all along, you'll live the rest of your life thinking these limitations are just who you are now. That's why the last mark is so insidious. It doesn't require their presence. They can move on, disappear entirely, and still own a piece of you because the mark isn't on your skin, it's in your mind. And every time you hesitate, every time you shrink, every time you silence yourself, you're carrying their work forward without them having to lift a finger. This is why awareness is your only weapon. If you don't see the mark, you'll carry it for them. But if you do see it, if you dare to name it, you can burn it off, reclaim your voice, and make sure no one ever writes their will into your soul again. So understand this, these marks are not random, and they are not harmless. Each one is intentional, each one designed to weaken, to distract, to control. The moment you recognize them, you take away their greatest weapon, secrecy. Awareness turns the unseen into the visible, and once you see it, you can fight it. You are not powerless. You are not bound to carry what was forced on you. You can strip off every mark, reclaim your ground, and stand so tall that no shadow dares to cross your path again. Because the truth is, the only power they have is the power you allow. And the moment you decide otherwise, the spell breaks.